The grand hall of the royal palace shined with 1,000 lights. Guests from across the galaxy filled the massive room, their voices mixing into a pleasant noise. Some had scales that changed color. Others had fur that glowed softly in the dark. A few floated above the ground, their bodies made of something that looked like smoke. They were all here to celebrate 100 years of peace. Tae-Yang stood near the east wall, his hands behind his back. His uniform was simple compared to the fancy clothes around him. Dark blue fabric with a small badge on the chest. A weapon on his belt. Nothing special. He watched the crowd with calm eyes, looking for anything wrong. Next to him, Captain Vorik stood like a mountain. The Kryn captain was 8 feet tall, with thick armor covering his body. His forearms rested on his weapons. His face, if you could call it that, had no expression, but Tae-Yang knew the captain was watching everything just like him. Around the room, 15 more guards stood at their posts. Each one was bigger and stronger than Tae-Yang. Each one came from a species built for war. The Velian Empire only hired the best, or at least that was what they said. Tae-Yang knew why he was really here. Politics. The Empire wanted to show they accepted all species, even humans. So they hired a few humans for guard duty, put them in uniforms, made them stand around at parties. It was all for show. Nobody expected humans to actually protect anyone. Humans were small, weak, slow to heal. No special abilities. Just normal, he did not mind. The job paid well. He got to see amazing places. And standing around at parties was easier than his old job in the Earth Defense Force. That had been hard work. This was just standing. Queen Lysara sat on her throne at the far end of the hall. She was beautiful, even by alien standards. Her skin was pale blue and seemed to shine from within. Her eyes were large and dark. She wore flowing robes that changed color as she moved. When she spoke, people listened. When she smiled, people smiled back. Tae-Yang had been near her many times in the past 6 months. She never looked at him. Not really. Her eyes would pass over him like he was furniture. It did not hurt his feelings. He was just a guard. Why would a queen notice him? The first sign of trouble was so small that almost nobody saw it. A flicker in the lights. One section of the wall looked strange for just a second. Tae-Yang's hand moved to his weapon. Something was wrong. Then the wall exploded. Fire and smoke filled the air. Screams replaced the pleasant music. Shapes moved through the smoke. They had weapons. Big weapons. Energy blasts tore through the crowd. People fell. Others ran. The peaceful celebration turned into chaos in seconds. Tae-Yang pulled his weapon and moved toward the throne. His training took over. Protect the primary target. Get between danger and the person you are guarding. Do your job, but something strange was happening. The other guards were not moving toward the queen. They were moving away. Captain Vorik, the huge warrior who looked so strong, was running. His forearms pumped as he crashed through the crowd. The other guards followed him. All 15 of them, running, leaving their posts. Leaving the queen, Tae-Yang understood in that moment. These alien species, for all their strength and size, had one weakness. They were prey animals. Their ancestors had run from danger. That instinct was still in them. When real danger came, when death was close, their bodies made them run. They could not help it. More explosions. The attackers moved closer to the throne. They wore armor that bent light around them. Hard to see. Hard to hit. But Tae-Yang saw enough. 6 of them. Maybe 7. All moving toward Queen Lysara. She was trying to stand. Blood ran down her arm where something had hit her. Her guards were gone. Her guests were running or hiding. She was alone. Tae-Yang ran. Not away, toward. His legs carried him across the hall. His weapon was up. His eyes were locked on the attackers. He did not think about the fact that he was alone. He did not think about the fact that he would probably die. He just moved. He reached the throne just as the first attacker raised his weapon at the queen. Tae-Yang fired. The blast caught the attacker in the chest. The man fell. The others turned toward this new threat. Tae-Yang grabbed the queen and pulled her behind the throne. It was big and made of thick stone. Good cover. He checked her wound. Bad but not deadly, not yet. She looked at him with wide eyes. You should run, she said. Her voice was weak. Save yourself. Not my way, Tae-Yang said. He leaned around the throne and fired 3 more shots. 2 hit. 1 attacker went down screaming. Another stumbled back. The attackers spread out. They were smart, professional. They moved to surround him. Tae-Yang counted his shots. 32 left in his weapon. 6 attackers still standing. Maybe 7. Not good odds. He pulled a small device from his belt and threw it. The device landed near the closest group of attackers. 2 seconds later, it exploded. Not a big explosion, just enough to knock them down and make them confused. Tae-Yang used those seconds. He grabbed decorative poles from near the throne, big metal poles that held flags. He jammed them between the floor stones, making a rough barrier. Not much protection, but better than nothing. Why? The queen asked. She held her injured arm. Why are you staying? You are just one human. They will kill you. Maybe, Tae-Yang said. He was breathing hard now. His heart was beating fast. But I took a job. I made a promise. I do not break promises. Energy blasts hit the throne. Stone chips flew everywhere. The attackers were getting organized again. They would rush him soon. All together. He could not stop them all, but he would try. Tae-Yang checked his weapon again. Checked his remaining devices. 2 more grenades. 1 smoke bomb. A backup knife, not much. He looked at the queen. She was watching him with something new in her eyes. Not pity, not confusion. Something else. Maybe respect. I never understood humans, she said quietly. Everyone says you are weak. That you do not belong in the galaxy. That you have nothing special. She paused. But you are still here. When everyone else ran. You stayed? Yes, Tae-Yang said simply. I stayed. The attackers moved forward. Tae-Yang raised his weapon. His hands were steady. His mind was clear. He was afraid. Very afraid. But fear did not make humans run. It just made them more careful, he fired. The fighting lasted 3 minutes. To Tae-Yang it felt like 3 hours. He fired, moved, threw grenades. Fired again. 2 more attackers went down. But the others were getting closer. Then something lucky happened. One of the attackers shot the control panel for the throne room doors. The heavy doors slammed shut, locked. The attackers were trapped outside. The ones inside were cut off from their support. Tae-Yang used the moment. He grabbed the queen and pulled her toward a small door behind the throne. A servant entrance. He got her through it and sealed it from inside. Now they were in a narrow hallway that led to a storage room. Better than being in the open hall. The storage room was small. Boxes and old furniture filled most of the space. 1 door in. No windows. No other exits. Tae-Yang pushed furniture against the door. Not much of a barrier, but it would slow them down. Queen Lysra sat on a box holding her arm. The bleeding had slowed but not stopped. Tae-Yang pulled out his medical kit. Basic supplies, bandages, pain medicine. Stuff meant for humans. He had no idea if it would work on Velian biology. He said this might hurt or it might not work at all. He only knew human medicine. The queen told him to do it. She was dying anyway. He cleaned the wound as well as he could, applied pressure to stop the bleeding, wrapped it tight with bandages. The queen made small sounds of pain but did not cry out. She was tough. He gave her something for the pain, a small pill from Earth. She swallowed it without asking what it was. His communicator buzzed. A voice came through. A woman, human. It was Jiwoo asking if he was alive. She worked in the palace communication center. They had been friends for years. Tae-Yang said he was alive for now. He had the queen. She was hurt but stable. They were locked in a storage room behind the throne. Jiwoo sounded relieved. The whole palace was in chaos. The attackers used the guards' retreat to take control of 3 sections. But loyal forces were fighting back. Help was coming. Tae-Yang asked how long it would take. Silence for a moment. Then Jiwoo spoke quietly. 4 hours, maybe 5. Could he hold that long? Tae-Yang looked at the thin door. The furniture piled against it. His nearly empty weapon. The wounded queen. He said he would try. He turned off the communicator to save power. Then he started looking through the storage room. Old ceremonial weapons on the walls. Decorative, not functional. Boxes of fabric and dishes. Nothing useful. Then he found something interesting. Fuel cells. The kind used for ceremonial flames. Each one held a lot of energy. He smiled. Energy could be used for many things, including explosions. While he worked, the queen watched him. Her pain medicine was working. She looked more alert now. She asked why he had not run. That was what she did not understand. His species was not built for fighting. They were small, fragile, no armor, no natural weapons. When the danger came, he should have run like the others. But he did not. Why? Taeyang did not look up from his work. He was connecting wires to a fuel cell, making a trap. He said he made a promise. When he took this job, he promised to protect her. Not just with words. A real promise. Humans took promises seriously, but the queen said he did not promise her. He promised the palace, the job. Why did that matter when he was about to die? Taeyang finished his trap and set it near the door. Then he sat down, his back against the wall. He was tired. His hands were shaking, not from fear, from the adrenaline wearing off. He told her about an earth saying, "You can kill a human, but you cannot make them break their word." He did not know why they were like this. Maybe it was because they were weak in other ways. Maybe it was because they needed to trust each other to survive. But when a human said they would do something, they meant it. The queen was quiet for a long time. Outside, they could hear sounds, footsteps, voices. The attackers were searching for them. She said she had ruled for 20 years. She had met thousands of species. Beings made of light. Beings who could change their shape. Beings who lived for 1,000 years. But she had never met anyone like humans. They felt fear. She could see it in his eyes. His hands shook. His heart beat fast, but he did not run. Taeyang said fear was not the problem. Fear was just information. It told you that danger was real. The question was what you did with that information. Some species ran. Humans tended to stand. The queen asked if this was true even when standing meant dying. Taeyang said especially then. Because that was when it mattered most. A loud crash. The door shook. They were trying to break in. Taeyang stood up and readied his weapon. 10 shots left. He had to make them count. The door shook again, harder. The furniture started to move. Taeyang aimed at the door, waited. His breathing was slow and steady. He had done this before. Not this exact situation, but close enough. In the Earth Defense Force, he had learned to stay calm when things got bad. The door burst open. Furniture flew across the room. An attacker stepped through, weapon raised. Taeyang fired twice. The attacker fell. Another one came through. Taeyang fired again. Missed, the attacker fired back. The blast hit the wall next to his head. Taeyang dove to the side and triggered his trap. The fuel cell exploded. Not a huge explosion, just enough. The doorway filled with fire and smoke. Screams. The attackers fell back, but they would be back. With more people. More weapons. Taeyang checked his ammunition. 5 shots, 1 grenade. That was all. He looked at the queen. She was watching him with those large, dark eyes. There was no fear in them now, just curiosity, like she was seeing something new for the first time. She said he was really going to die here, for her, a person he did not even know. Taeyang agreed it was probable, but maybe not. Jiwoo said help was coming. He just had to keep her alive until they got here. The queen asked what if they did not come in time. Taeyang shrugged. Then he would die doing his job. There were worse ways to go. The queen shook her head slowly. Humans were insane, Taeyang said maybe, or maybe they just saw the galaxy differently than everyone else. Footsteps in the hallway. They were coming back. Taeyang readied himself for the next attack. The queen gripped her wounded arm and watched him. This strange, small human who refused to run. And for the first time in her life, Queen Lysara understood that strength came in many forms. 6 hours had passed. Taeyang sat against the wall, his weapon across his lap. He had 3 shots left. No grenades, no tricks. Just 3 shots and whatever strength remained in his tired body. The attackers had tried to break through 4 more times. Each time Taeyang had stopped them, but each time had cost him. A burn on his left arm from an energy blast. A cut above his eye from flying debris. Bruises everywhere. His body was telling him to stop. To rest, to give up, he ignored it. Pain was just another piece of information. Like fear, you acknowledged it and kept moving. Queen Lysara was sleeping. The human pain medicine had worked better than expected. Her wound looked bad, but she was stable. She would live, if help came. If Taeyang could hold out just a little longer. His communicator buzzed. Jiwoo again. She sounded stressed. The rescue forces were delayed, fighting in the corridors, more attackers than expected. It would be another 2 hours. Maybe 3. Could he hold? Taeyang looked at his weapon. 3 shots. He looked at the door. It was barely holding. 1 more attack and it would fail. He looked at the sleeping queen. She trusted him to keep her alive. He told Jiwoo he would do his best. That was all he could promise. Then he said something else. If he did not make it, she should tell his family back on Earth that he was thinking of them, that he was sorry he left but glad he could help someone, that it was a good way to go. Jiwoo was crying. He could hear it through the communicator. She told him not to talk like that. Help was coming. He just had to hold on. But both of them knew the truth. 3 shots. A broken door. Tired body. The math did not work in his favor. The queen woke up. She had heard his conversation. She looked at him with those large eyes. Eyes that had seen empires rise and fall. Eyes that had never seen anything quite like a human before. She told him there was a way out. Behind one of the storage boxes was a maintenance shaft. Small, tight, but a human could fit through it. It led to the lower levels of the palace. To safety, he could escape. Leave her. Save himself. She would not blame him. He had already done more than anyone could expect. More than her own guards had done. He had earned the right to survive. Taiyang looked at the shaft. It was small. Just big enough. He could probably fit through it. Crawl down to the lower levels. Find the rescue forces. Live to see another day. He looked back at the queen. Wounded, weak, unable to defend herself. If he left, she would die within minutes. The attackers would break through. They would finish what they started. He said no. Simple as that, no. The queen's face showed frustration, and something else, confusion. Genuine confusion. She asked why. Why would he throw away his life for someone he barely knew? She was just one person. He had already proved his bravery. The whole galaxy had seen him stand when others fled. He had nothing left to prove. Why would he not save himself? Taiyang stood up. His legs hurt. His arms hurt. Everything hurt. But he stood anyway. He moved to the door and checked its stability. It would not last much longer. He told her about Earth, about human history, about the firefighters who climbed into burning buildings knowing they would not come back out, about soldiers who jumped on grenades to save their friends, about ordinary people who pulled strangers from car crashes and burning homes, about all the humans throughout history who chose to help instead of run. It was not about glory, he said. It was not about being remembered. It was not even about being brave. It was about something simpler, something that made humans different from most species in the galaxy. Humans could not walk away. When someone needed help, when someone was in danger, humans felt a pull, a need, a requirement to act. Not all humans. Some were cowards or selfish, but enough humans felt this way that it became a defining trait of the species. Maybe it was a flaw, he said. Maybe it was an evolutionary mistake. Maybe it should have killed the species long ago, but somehow this strange inability to abandon others had helped humans survive. It brought them together, made them work as teams, created bonds stronger than fear. And now, alone in a storage room with a wounded queen and 3 bullets left, that same flaw would probably kill him. But he could not change who he was, could not become someone who walked away from people who needed help. It was not in him. The queen was quiet for a long time. Then she spoke softly. She said she had underestimated humans. All of them had. Everyone in the galaxy saw humans as weak because they were physically smaller. They saw humans as unimportant because Earth had limited resources. They saw humans as primitive because their technology lagged behind other species. But they were wrong. Humans were not weak. They were strong in ways that most species had never developed. They had something that could not be measured in muscles or weapons or technology. They had the ability to choose principle over survival, to choose helping over hiding, to choose standing over running. And that, she realized, was the most dangerous and valuable trait in the entire galaxy. Taiyang smiled. A tired smile, a smile that said he understood. Then he turned back to the door because the sounds were starting again. Footsteps, voices. The attackers were gathering for one final push. He checked his weapon one last time. 3 shots. He would make them count. He would make every second count. Because that was all he had left to give. The door shook. They were bringing something heavy. Something powerful. The final assault was beginning. Taiyang took a deep breath. Let it out slowly. His hands were steady now. His mind was clear. He was not thinking about escape or survival or anything beyond the next few minutes. He was thinking about the job. Protect the queen. Keep her alive. That was all that mattered. The door exploded inward. Smoke and fire filled the room. Shapes moved through the chaos. Taeyang raised his weapon, first shot. An attacker fell, second shot. Another one down, third shot. The last of his ammunition. One more attacker collapsed. But there were more. So many more. They poured through the broken door. Taeyang dropped his empty weapon and pulled his knife. It was small. Just a backup tool. But it was sharp and he knew how to use it. The first attacker reached him. Taeyang moved. Not fancy, not graceful. Just effective. The knife found its target. The attacker fell. Another attacker. Another quick movement. Another fall, but there were too many. A blast hit him in the side. Pain exploded through his body. He stumbled. Kept moving. Had to keep moving. Had to protect the queen. Another blast. His leg, he fell to one knee. The knife slipped from his hand. The attackers moved closer. Weapons raised for the final shots. Behind him, Queen Lysara was shouting something. But Taeyang could not hear it. His ears were ringing. His vision was getting dark around the edges. He was losing, but he was still between the attackers and the queen. Still blocking them. Still protecting her. Even on his knees, bleeding and broken, he was doing his job. The attackers raised their weapons. This was it, the end. Taeyang had no more tricks. No more weapons. No more strength, just will. And will was not always enough. Then something impossible happened. A roar, loud enough to shake the walls. Loud enough to stop the attackers in their tracks. Captain Vorax crashed through the doorway like a force of nature. His forearms held weapons that fired without stopping. Behind him came the other guards. All 15 of them. The ones who had fled. The ones who had abandoned their posts. They had returned. The battle was brutal. The returned guards fought with something beyond training or duty. They fought with shame transformed into determination. Every shot, every movement, every action was driven by one simple need to make up for their earlier failure. Captain Vorax fought like a storm given form. His forearms moved in perfect coordination. His weapons never stopped firing. When he ran out of ammunition, he used his massive fists. When an attacker got too close to Taeyang and the queen, Vorax was there. Blocking, protecting, doing what he should have done from the start. The other guards spread out through the storage room. They created a defensive perimeter. They pushed the attackers back toward the broken door. They showed why the Valian Empire had hired them in the first place. They were trained warriors, strong, fast, deadly when they chose to be, but the attackers were not done. More kept coming through the door. Someone had sent a lot of people to kill the queen. This was not just an assassination. This was an invasion. A coup attempt. Taeyang tried to stand, but his wounded leg would not hold him. He collapsed back to his knees. Blood was pooling beneath him. Too much blood. His vision was getting blurry. His thoughts were getting slow, Captain Vorax noticed. In the middle of the battle, with enemies all around, he noticed the small human bleeding on the floor. He moved, not toward an enemy, toward Taeyang. He stood over the human, his massive body providing cover. Shots meant for Taeyang hit Vorax instead. His armor took the damage. Some of it got through. But he did not move. The captain did not speak. Did not explain. He did not need to. His actions said everything. This small human had shown more courage than any of them, had stood when they fled, had protected their queen when they abandoned her. The least Vorax could do was return the favor. The tide of battle turned. The attackers began to fall back. Not because they were defeated, but because they realized something. Their plan had failed. The queen was still alive. The guards had returned, and reinforcements were coming. They could hear it now. Distant sounds, weapons fire, shouting. The loyal forces were fighting through the palace. One of the attackers made a final desperate move. He had explosives strapped to his chest, a suicide bomber. He ran toward Queen Lysara, ready to die if it meant completing the mission. Taeyang saw it happen in slow motion. Saw the bomber running, saw the queen's eyes go wide, saw Captain Vorax starting to turn but too slow. Too far away, Taeyang moved. He did not think about his wounded leg, did not think about the pain or the blood loss or the fact that he could barely stand. He just moved, threw himself forward, crashed into the bomber. Both of them went down in a tangle of limbs. The bomber tried to trigger the explosives. Taeyang grabbed his hand, held it. used what little strength he had left to keep that finger away from the trigger. Captain Vorax reached them. One massive hand grabbed the bomber and threw him across the room. Away from Tae-Yang. Away from the Queen. The bomber hit the wall. The explosives went off. The blast shook the room. Debris rained down. Smoke filled the air. When it cleared, the bomber was gone. Just a crater in the wall where he had been. Vorax stood between the blast site and Tae-Yang, his body scorched but still standing. The remaining attackers broke, turned, ran. They had lost. Their leader, wherever he was, had failed. The Queen lived, and now the full force of the palace guard was coming for them. The guards pursued them, caught some in the hallways. Others escaped into the palace. But the immediate threat was over. The storage room fell silent except for the sounds of heavy breathing and groaning from wounded people. Tae-Yang lay on the floor. His body had given everything it had. There was nothing left. He could not move, could barely breathe, but he was smiling. The Queen was safe. He had done his job. Captain Vorax knelt beside him. The massive warrior looked down at the small human who had shamed them all, who had shown them what duty really meant. The captain said nothing. Words seemed too small for what he was feeling. Queen Lysara crawled to Tae-Yang. Her own wounds forgotten, she took his hand. It was cold, too cold. She was saying something, but he could not hear it anymore. The darkness was pulling him down. The last thing he saw was her face. Those large dark eyes looking at him with something he had never seen from an alien before. Gratitude, respect, maybe even something like friendship. Then medical teams arrived. Rushed through the doorway with equipment and medicines. Humans and aliens working together. They surrounded Tae-Yang. Started working on him immediately. Stopping the bleeding. Injecting medicines. Doing everything they could to save his life. Ji-Woo was there too. She had fought her way through the palace to reach them. She was crying. Holding Tae-Yang's other hand. Telling him to hold on. That he had made it. That help was here. That he was going to be okay. But Tae-Yang could not hear her. He was somewhere else now. Somewhere dark and quiet. Somewhere beyond pain and fear and duty. The medical teams worked for 30 minutes. By the end, everyone in the room was covered in Tae-Yang's blood, but they had stabilized him barely. He was alive. For now, they loaded him onto a stretcher, started carrying him toward the medical wing. Queen Lysara followed despite her own injuries. She would not leave him. Not after what he had done. As they moved through the palace, word spread. The story of what happened was already becoming legend. A human guard stood alone when all others fled, protected the Queen for 6 hours, fought with everything he had, nearly died doing his duty. Palace staff stopped what they were doing, watched the stretcher pass. Some saluted. Some bowed. Some just stared in amazement at the small human who had done the impossible. Outside the palace, the coup had failed. The attackers were captured or killed. Their leader, Lord Kethis, a rival noble who wanted the throne for himself, was found hiding in the lower levels. He was dragged before Queen Lysara in chains. He looked shocked. Genuinely shocked. His plan had been perfect. The guards would flee. The Queen would be defenseless. The coup would succeed in minutes. How had it failed? The Queen looked at him with cold eyes. She told him he made one mistake. He assumed all guards were the same, that all species shared the same weaknesses, that when faced with overwhelming danger everyone would run. But he was wrong. Because he did not understand humans, did not understand that for some species duty mattered more than survival, that some beings would stand and fight even when logic said to flee. Lord Kethis spat on the ground. Called humans a mistake, an evolutionary dead end, said their stubborn refusal to flee when they should made them stupid, not brave. The Queen smiled. A cold smile. She said maybe he was right, maybe humans were stupid, but that stupid human had saved her life. And those supposedly cowardly guards who fled had found the courage to return because of him. She told Lord Kethis he would spend the rest of his life in prison. Thinking about how his perfect plan was ruined by one human who refused to run. As guards dragged him away, the Queen turned to Captain Vorax. She asked if Tae-Yang would survive. The captain did not know. The injuries were severe. The human body was fragile, but if will counted for anything, if determination could keep someone alive, then yes, Tae-Yang would make it, because that human did not know how to give up. 2 weeks later, Tae-Yang opened his eyes. White ceiling. Clean smell. Soft sounds of medical equipment. He was in a hospital. His body felt strange. Heavy but also light. Like it belonged to someone else. He tried to move his hand. It worked. Slowly, everything worked. He was alive. A face appeared above him. Jiwoo. She was smiling and crying at the same time. She called for the doctors. People rushed into the room. They checked his vital signs. Asked him questions. How did he feel? What was his name? Could he remember what happened? He remembered everything. The attack. The long hours in the storage room. The final battle. Falling. Darkness. Then nothing. The doctors told him he was lucky to be alive. His injuries had been severe. Multiple energy weapon burns, blood loss, trauma to internal organs. They had used a mix of human and alien medical techniques to save him. It should not have worked. But somehow it did. Later, when the doctors left, Jiwoo sat beside his bed. She told him everything that happened while he was unconscious. The coup had failed completely. All the attackers were captured or dead. Lord Kethis was in prison awaiting trial. The palace was secure again, but that was not the important part. The important part was what happened after. His stand had been recorded by the palace security system. The footage showed everything. One human standing alone, protecting the queen while all other guards fled, fighting for hours with nothing but determination and a few weapons. The footage had spread across the galaxy. Billions of beings had watched it, seen this small, weak human doing the impossible. News networks played it constantly. Analysts discussed it endlessly. Everyone had an opinion about the human who would not run. Taeyang did not like hearing this. He had just done his job. Nothing special. Any guard should have done the same. Why was everyone making such a big deal about it? Jiwoo laughed. She said he still did not understand. For most species in the galaxy, what he did was impossible. Their instincts would not let them stand in that situation. Their bodies would force them to flee. But humans were different. Humans could override their fear, choose duty over survival, and that terrified some people while inspiring others. Applications for human security positions had increased massively. Every government, every corporation, every important person in the galaxy suddenly wanted human guards. Because if one human could do what Taeyang did, maybe others could too. There was more. Jiwoo had been offered a job running a new security company. All human personnel. The contracts were already coming in. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Everyone wanted to hire humans now. Taeyang was quiet for a long time. Then he asked about Captain Vorix. What happened to him? Jiwoo's smile faded. She said Vorix had retired. The shame of fleeing was too much. Even though he came back, even though he helped save Taeyang and the Queen, he could not forgive himself. He had abandoned his post, broken his oath. In his culture, that was unforgivable. Taeyang felt sad about that. Vorix was a good soldier. He just had bad instincts. That was not his fault. Evolution had given him a weakness, but he had overcome it in the end. That took real courage. Queen Lysara visited him that afternoon. She came alone. No guards, no servants, just her. She sat in the chair beside his bed and looked at him for a long time. She thanked him. Not formally, not as a queen thanking a guard, but as a person thanking someone who saved their life. She said she had been wrong about humans, about him. She had dismissed his species as weak and unimportant, but strength came in many forms, and humans had a type of strength that most species lacked. She offered him rewards, money, land, a title. A position as her personal guard with a massive salary. Anything he wanted. Just name it and it was his. Taeyang declined. Politely, he did not want rewards. He just wanted to go back to work. Maybe a different job. The palace held bad memories now, but still just a simple security position somewhere. Nothing fancy. The queen looked surprised. Then she laughed. A real laugh. Not the formal sound she made at parties. A genuine laugh. She said humans were the strangest species she had ever met. Most beings would have taken the rewards and lived comfortable lives. But humans seemed allergic to comfort. But she did have one request. She wanted to ask him something. Something that had bothered her since that day in the storage room. Why did humans risk so much to help others? What benefit did they get? What evolutionary advantage came from self-sacrifice? Taeyang thought about it. Then he told her about Earth. about how humans evolved as social animals, how they needed each other to survive. One human alone was weak, but humans working together could do amazing things. So humans developed something unusual, a need to protect the group, to help others even at personal cost. Because if everyone helped each other, the whole group survived better. Selfish humans died alone. Helpful humans lived in communities. Over thousands of years, this became more than just strategy. It became instinct, became culture, became identity. Humans who helped others felt good. Humans who abandoned others felt terrible. It was built into their psychology now. That was why he could not leave her. Not because of duty or honor or any noble reason, but because walking away would have hurt something deep inside him, something that made him human. The Queen understood now. She said that was the most valuable trait in the galaxy, because most species were individuals first, group members second. But humans were group members first, individuals second. That made them different, made them dangerous, made them essential. She told him about changes she was making. New policies, new standards. From now on, all important security details in her empire would include human guards, not because humans were superior warriors, but because they would never abandon their posts. Never leave people unprotected. Never run when running was the logical choice. Other empires were doing the same. The whole galaxy was changing how it viewed humans. They were no longer seen as weak or primitive or unimportant. They were seen as essential, as the beings you wanted beside you when everything went wrong. Taeyang did not know how to feel about that. He had just been doing his job. But apparently his job had changed the galaxy. Before she left, the Queen gave him something, a small medallion. It bore the symbol of her house. She said it was not a decoration, not a reward. It was a promise. Wherever he went in her empire, whoever he met, this medallion meant something. It meant someone would help him. Someone would stand with him. Someone would not run, because that was what he had taught them. Loyalty worked both ways. After she left, Taeyang looked at the medallion. It was small, simple, but it felt heavy in his hand. Heavy with meaning, with responsibility, with the weight of being a symbol whether he wanted to be or not. He put it in his pocket. Maybe he would never need it. Maybe it would just sit there forever. But knowing it was there felt good. Like having friends in distant places. Like being part of something bigger than himself. Jiwoo came back later. Brought him food. Real food from Earth. She had somehow found a place that served human meals. They ate together and talked about the future. About her new company. About job offers pouring in for both of them. Taeyang listened. Nodded in the right places. But his mind was elsewhere. Thinking about what came next. About how one choice in one moment had changed everything. He had stood when others fled. That was all. Nothing complicated. Nothing heroic in his mind. Just a choice to do his job. To keep his promise. To stay instead of run. But apparently in a galaxy full of beings who ran when danger came, standing still was revolutionary. 3 months after the attack, the galaxy looked different. Not physically. The stars were still the same. The planets still orbited. Ships still traveled between worlds. But something fundamental had changed in how beings saw each other. On a mining colony at the edge of known space, a labor dispute turned violent. Workers threatened to blow up the reactor. Negotiations failed. The situation looked hopeless. Then a human security officer named Wu Jin walked into the reactor room, alone, unarmed. He talked to the workers for 6 hours, listened to their problems, found solutions. By the end, everyone walked out peacefully. The colony manager was amazed. His own security team had wanted to use force, but the human found a better way, not through strength or threats. Through patience and determination and refusing to give up on people. On a diplomatic vessel crossing neutral space, assassins infiltrated the ship. They moved through the corridors, killing anyone they found. The ship's alien guards fought back but were overwhelmed. Then the human guards set up a defensive position in the main hall. They held it for 2 hours until military ships arrived. Every diplomat survived. In a city on a water world, a building collapsed during an earthquake. Rescue teams worked frantically, but many people were trapped in dangerous areas. The alien rescuers had to pull back when aftershocks made the structure unstable. But human rescuers went in anyway. They pulled out 17 people who would have died. 3 humans were injured. None of them regretted their choice. Story after story spread across the galaxy. Humans doing things that seemed illogical, taking risks that did not make sense, staying in dangerous situations when they could leave. But somehow it worked. Problems got solved. People got saved. Disasters were averted. Not everyone was happy about it. Some species saw human influence as a threat. They argued that humans were changing galactic culture, making other species feel inadequate, creating impossible standards of behavior. Lord Kethis, even from his prison cell, spread messages. He said humans were dangerous. Their refusal to flee from overwhelming danger was not courage. It was a mental defect, a flaw in their psychology. Eventually, this flaw would get them all killed, and any species that relied on humans would fall with them. Some people listened to him. Anti-human groups formed on several worlds. They protested human security firms. They demanded laws limiting how many humans could work in certain positions. They spread propaganda showing humans as reckless and unstable. But most beings saw things differently. They remembered their own history, all the times when guards fled, when leaders abandoned their people, when the logical choice to run meant someone died. They looked at humans and saw something new, something valuable, something the galaxy needed. Tae Yang watched all of this from his new job. He had taken a position at a small diplomatic facility on a quiet world. Nothing dramatic, just routine security work. It was what he wanted. But people kept finding him. News reporters, historians, politicians, all wanting to talk to the human who changed everything. He turned most of them away. What could he say that he had not already said? He stood because he could not walk away. That was all. Simple as that. But people wanted more. They wanted deep meaning. Philosophical insights. Grand explanations. Jiwoo's company was thriving. Last Stand Securities. The name was her idea. Taeyang thought it was too dramatic, but she said it perfectly described what humans offered. When everyone else ran, humans made their last stand. Clients loved it. She had hired over 1,000 humans now, all carefully selected, all trained in the principles Taeyang had demonstrated. Stay at your post. Protect those who need protecting. Never abandon someone in danger. Simple rules. But they worked. Jiwoo visited Taeyang when she could. Brought him reports about the company. Stories about her employees doing amazing things. She was proud, not just of the business success, but of what they were building. A reputation, a standard, a promise that when you hired a human, you got someone who would not run. Captain Vorix appeared one day. Taeyang had not expected to see him again. The former guard captain looked different, older somehow, tired. He said he could not move past what happened, could not forgive himself for fleeing. But he was trying to make up for it. He had started a training program, teaching alien guards how to overcome their flight instincts, how to make the choice to stand even when their bodies told them to run. It was hard work. Most failed, but some succeeded, and those few were becoming the best guards in the galaxy. Taeyang told him he was doing good work, that returning to save him and the Queen had taken real courage, that shame could be transformed into purpose. Vorix seemed grateful to hear it. Said he hoped one day he would believe it himself. An alien philosopher published a famous paper. It was called The Human Paradox. The main argument was that humans should not exist. Evolution should have removed their tendency for self-sacrifice. Natural selection should have killed off beings who helped others at personal cost. But humans survived anyway. Thrived even, because their cooperation was so strong it overcame individual weakness. Because helping each other meant the whole species benefited. Because sometimes the illogical choice was actually the smartest choice in the long run. The paper became required reading in many schools. Young beings across the galaxy learned about humans, about Taeyang's stand, about the principle of staying instead of running. Some were inspired. Others were skeptical. But everyone knew the story now. Queen Lysara announced major policy changes. The guard protocol, she called it. Every important security detail in her empire would include at least one human. Not as the leader necessarily, but as the anchor. The one being who could be trusted to never flee. Never abandon their post, never leave someone unprotected. Other empires followed her example. The Karathi Federation, the Iron Dominion, the Free Worlds Alliance. One by one, they adopted similar policies. Within a year, human security personnel were spread across hundreds of worlds, thousands of positions, millions of contracts Earth celebrated. Their people were finally respected. Finally valued, finally seen as equals instead of primitives. The government struggled to meet the demand. Training programs expanded. New security academies opened. Young humans left their homeworld by the thousands, seeking positions across the galaxy. Taiyang received a message from his family. They had seen the footage, watched him stand alone against impossible odds. They were proud, but also worried. Would he be safe? Would he take another dangerous job? He wrote back, told them he was fine. The new job was quiet, safe, boring even, exactly what he wanted. But he could not promise to always play it safe. Because if danger came, if someone needed help, he would respond. That was who he was, who humans were. His family understood. That was the strange thing. Despite the danger, despite the risks, they understood. Because they were human too. They felt the same pull, the same need to help, the same inability to walk away from people in trouble. One night, Taiyang stood at his post. Just a routine shift. Nothing happening. The facility was quiet. The night was peaceful. He thought about how his life had changed, how one moment of choice had created ripples across the entire galaxy. He touched the medallion in his pocket, Queen Lysara's gift. He had never needed to use it. Probably never would, but it was nice to have. Nice to know that somewhere out there people remembered. People cared. People would stand with him if he ever needed them, because that was what he had taught the galaxy. Loyalty mattered. Standing mattered. Being the one who refused to run mattered. And sometimes, just sometimes, one person standing could change everything. 1 year after the attack, the Galactic Council convened for a historic vote. The chamber was massive. Representatives from 500 species filled the space. Each one had an opinion about humanity. Each one had a vote that would determine humanity's official place in galactic civilization. Taiyang had been called to testify. He did not want to go, did not want to speak in front of billions of beings watching across the galaxy, but Queen Lysara had asked him personally, said it mattered, said his words could change the vote, so he went, stood before the council in his simple security uniform, no fancy clothes, no prepared speech, just a human trying to explain his species to beings who might never understand. The council asked questions, hard questions. Why did humans disregard self-preservation? How could the galaxy trust beings who acted illogically? What would happen when human stubbornness caused disasters instead of preventing them? Taiyang answered simply. He said humans were not special, not superior. They just had different instincts. Where most species felt the need to flee from danger, humans felt the need to face it, not because they were braver, but because that was how their evolution worked. He told them about Earth, about how early humans survived by working together, how cooperation became more important than individual strength, how helping each other was the key to survival. Over thousands of generations, this created a species that felt bad when they abandoned others, that felt good when they helped others, that sometimes valued group survival over personal safety. Was it logical? No. Was it safe? No, but it worked. Humans spread across their planet, built civilizations, reached for the stars, all because they refused to leave each other behind. A representative from the Kryn species spoke. He said this was exactly the problem. Human behavior was unpredictable, dangerous. They took risks that endangered themselves and others. How could anyone trust beings who acted against their own survival instincts? Before Taiyang could answer, Captain Vorik stood up in the observation section. He was not supposed to speak, but he spoke anyway. He said he had fled when danger came. His instincts overrode his training. His body forced him to run. It was the greatest shame of his life, but he returned. Because a human showed him that instincts could be overcome, that the choice to stand mattered more than the instinct to flee. That courage was not about being unafraid. It was about choosing duty despite fear. He said the galaxy needed humans, not because they were perfect, but because they reminded everyone else that choice mattered more than instinct. That who you decided to be was more important than what evolution made you. The council chamber fell silent. Then other voices spoke. A diplomat whose life was saved by human guards. A colony leader who watched humans resolve a crisis without violence. A merchant who hired humans and never regretted it. Story after story. Example after example. But there were critics too. Those who feared human influence. Those who worried about changing galactic culture. Those who argued that one species should not have special status just because they acted differently than others. The debate lasted hours. Tae-yang sat in a small room and listened to aliens discuss humanity. Some praised them. Some feared them. Some wanted them restricted. Some wanted them honored. It was strange hearing his species talked about like a problem to solve. Jiwoo sat with him. She had come to support him. She held his hand during the difficult parts, reminded him that no matter what the council decided, humans had already proven their worth. Already earned respect, already changed the galaxy for the better. Finally, the council called for a vote. The question was simple. Should humanity be granted full council status? Should they be recognized as equals with a right to participate in galactic decisions? The vote was close. Very close. Many species voted no. They feared change, feared human influence, feared what it meant to accept beings who acted so differently from everyone else. But enough voted yes, prey species mostly, those who understood what it meant to have guards who would not flee, those who valued loyalty over logic, those who had been helped by humans and wanted to return the favor. The vote passed. Humanity was granted full council status, not because of their technology, not because of their military power, not because of their resources, but because of their character, because of what they represented, because sometimes the galaxy needed beings who refused to run. The announcement spread across all worlds instantly. Earth erupted in celebration. Millions of humans cheered. They had done it, reached the highest level of galactic society, become true equals in a galaxy that once dismissed them as primitives. But Tae-yang felt tired more than happy. He had become a symbol, a representation of his entire species. He never wanted that responsibility. He just wanted to do his job and help people. Now his name was in history books. His face was known across the galaxy. His choices had consequences he never imagined. The council offered him a position, a ceremonial role as the first human representative, good pay, comfortable life, respect and authority. Everything most people wanted, he declined, politely but firmly. He was a guard, not a politician. He belonged at his post, not in a fancy office. Someone else could represent humanity at the council, someone who enjoyed that kind of work. Queen Lysara understood. She had expected his answer. Before he left, she gave him one final gift. Not a physical object, but a promise. If he ever needed anything, if he ever faced danger, if he ever called for help, she would answer. Her entire empire would answer. Because that was what he had taught them. That was what loyalty meant. Tae-yang returned to his quiet facility on his quiet world. Back to routine security work, standing at his post, watching for trouble, protecting people who needed protection. It was simple work, basic work, but it was honest and it mattered. Sometimes reporters still found him. Sometimes important people asked for meetings. He usually said no. He had nothing new to say, nothing profound to add. He had stood because he could not walk away. That was the whole story. Everything else was just commentary. One evening, he stood at his usual post. The sun was setting on this alien world. The sky was purple and orange, beautiful in a strange way. He thought about how far he had come, from a simple soldier on Earth to a symbol for his entire species. He touched the medallion in his pocket, Queen Lysara's first gift, the promise of help if he needed it. He had never used it, probably never would, but knowing it was there felt good, felt like having friends across the galaxy, felt like belonging to something bigger than himself. His communicator buzzed, Jiwoo checking in. Her company now had branches on over 100 worlds, employed 10,000 humans, protected millions of beings, all because one human stood his ground one day. She asked if he was happy, if he regretted anything, if he wished he had taken one of the many offers for better positions and better pay. He said no. He was exactly where he wanted to be, standing at his post, doing his job, helping people when they needed help. It was simple. It was honest. It was enough. The galaxy had changed. Humans were respected now, valued, needed. They had earned their place not through conquest or technology or wealth, but through the simple act of staying when others fled, of standing when others ran, of helping when others hid. It was not logical. It was not safe. It was not the smart choice by most calculations, but it was the human choice, and somehow that was enough to change the galaxy. Tae-yang finished his shift. walked back to his quarters. Tomorrow would be another day. Another shift. Another opportunity to do his job. Nothing special. Nothing dramatic. Just a human standing at his post, protecting those who needed protection. Because that was what humans did. That was who they were. That was their gift to the galaxy. When everyone else fled, humans remained. When danger came, humans stood. When someone needed help, humans answered. Not because they were heroes. Not because they were special. But because they were human. And being human meant you did not walk away from people who needed you. It was simple as that.